Sure hope my Sonic game doesn't blare out.
Gotta go fast.
Hello everyone and welcome to Turn-Based Talk. I'm your host Caleb from MURPHGAM Gaming, and today, every day or whatever, we have Kyle.
This is your last chance. Get out while you still can.
And Amos.
It's your boy.
I knew it. I knew it. Like, before we did this, I was like, hey, Kyle, how much you want to bet that Amos says it's your boy as his introduction? He's like, I bet he does.
It's your boy.
It's your boy. Guys, today we're talking about Apple versus Android.
Apple?
Sounds like it's going to be a very heated
Are we talking like
debate.
Granny Smith or Red Delicious Apple?
No.
Talk about Fiji
Well, we might
Apple?
as well. Which one's your favorite, green or red?
Green.
Green.
As controversial as it may sound, I like taking a chomp out of a good orange myself.
Oh my God.
He doesn't peel it. He just like takes it and just chomps into it.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, just peel and all.
Yeah,
it's good for the nutrients.
I mean, horses
takes so
don't
much
know if
time
you
to
can
peel.
peel it, so I figured it's naturally supposed to be eaten that way.
I mean, that's how you eat
Potatoes.
apples.
You just take the potato out of the ground and chomp down.
This is totally okay. We're totally going off topic, but it's okay. We're talking about fruit, so technically apple. I was going to my grandparents' house, and they're watching old person TV, whatever show that is. But it was like some like doctors on. They were like giving nutritional facts or whatever, and they were like, yeah, you just have to, when you eat the banana, just chop it up and eat the peel with it. And I was just like, what? And then like they're like, look, we made a smoothie of it, and it was like green. And I was like, what? And like the credits are scrolling while they're like, it's actually really good. And then it just shows one of the doctors like slurping up a pill. I was like, what is this show? Why are you watching it?
Once you pick the hairs out, it's very nutritious.
Anyway, so I thought we would start by talking about kind of our, not really our stance, but just kind of what we've owned. Amos, I kind of want to start with you because you have the most oddball phones out of both of like all of us.
Okay, so I have a brand called Hawaii. I don't think it comes from Hawaii, but it definitely is.
Is that really what it's called?
Yeah, there's a device out there called Hawaii brand phones.
I've never
or at
heard
least
of that.
I had one. Like that was like my first. That was like my first really crappy. Back when flip phones were the really big thing.
Flip
like,
phones.
We should go back to flip phones.
the stuff that they still use in anime.
I guess we could also say, should we specifically only talk about phones, or should we also talk about like?
Well,
computers?
I mean, they have other devices, like
Well, yeah, I guess we should kind of.
They both have computers, both have tablets, both have phones, both have.
So I guess we could say just
Watches.
Apple versus Android and Microsoft, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or PC. I don't know. Anyway, so from your standpoint, when it comes to phones, you really haven't had either well, actually, I bet you
those phones run on Android.
Yeah, I was about to say, I bet those phones run on Android.
Oh yeah, every phone I've had was basically an Android. Like it wasn't. I mean, they're like off-brand phones, but they all ran on Android.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, Android is the operating system for pretty much everything that's not iPhone.
Pretty much, yeah, you got that right. I mean, unless you're getting this from like North Korea or something.
No, isn't Google its own thing?
I don't know. They seem to be
those
partnered
phones
with
died.
them.
No, the Pixel. The
Oh
Pixel?
yeah. Oh, that's right. I guess no one
you mean
liked
the
it because
phone
it
that
wasn't
they-
Android.
You mean the phone that they cut off service for after like a year?
Are you serious?
That's
Yeah, they
right.
stopped doing
I
stuff for
remember
it.
that now.
I didn't
Wow,
know that.
that was a while ago.
Man, that phone looked cool too, but I never looked into it, so I guess there's
That's
a reason
exactly
for that.
why they died.
People like
so there's only two operating systems. If there is any other operating system, they're not as popular and enough to talk
Even
about.
the guy, even the owner of Microsoft, who when they had their Microsoft phones, said he owns an Android now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
Of course.
Okay, now Kyle, on you.
I mean, I've kind of come from the same area as Amos, where I used to have a lot of those like off-brand phones, and it wasn't until like maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I actually got like a decently made Android phone when I swapped over to the Galaxy S6. And I had the Galaxy Note 7, which did not blow up in my face, actually, before I managed to swap.
Yeah, you were really bummed.
I love that phone, but we'll get to that later. And then I swapped over to the S8. And then for work reasons, a year ago, I swapped over to the iPhone 7.
Right.
Which is my current phone.
And on my side of things, actually, my first phone I ever had was called a Firefly. Have you guys ever heard of those phones?
What in the flippy floppy flip is a Firefly?
So a Firefly, it was like
that TV show that got canceled a long time ago.
Oh yeah, I remember Firefly. It was pretty all right.
Fireflies were phones meant for kids that needed a phone but didn't need a smartphone type of thing. So basically, well, smartphones of that time. Yeah, Nokia. No, so basically all it had was 6 buttons on it. It had a call, an end, a mom, a dad, and a contact button. And then the button on the side was, if you pushed it, it called 911. Like, you had to be super careful because as soon as you pushed it, it would call 911. But
what the heck?
But this phone
did not have a dial pad?
No, you
couldn't call anybody except mom and dad?
You called mom. Yeah, you could put other contacts in there, but like, it was really complicated. You had to like do it through a computer, and it was just weird and dumb. But like, when you bought the phone, like they asked, what's your mom's number? What's your dad's number? And they put it in the phone. So, and that's just the thing. So I had that like my 4th through 6th grade year, I think, like halfway through my 6th grade year. And then I got the almighty Razor, which,
oh baby,
gosh, everybody had a Razor, and I loved my Razor. My Razor that was the first phone I had that got on the internet, and I was excited. I could watch YouTube. And
I'm so pissed I never got that phone.
You never got a Razor?
No, never in my entire life. I wanted one, and I just skipped over it.
Mine was red, I think. No, maybe not. I think it was. I don't remember. Anyway,
yeah, I'm going to sell my iPhone and get a Razor. That's what I'm gonna
There you go.
I don't care if they're outdated. They're cool.
And then after that, it was just this phone called Flight 2. That was like the first phone where I started like putting music. I started using it as an MP3 player, but then like everybody was getting iPhones, so I accidentally broke my Flight 2. Like I remember I was like messing. It was one of those phones that like slid out or whatever. Like you pushed on it and then like it turned horizontal or whatever. Well, I was messing with like the part that slid, and I like disconnected the video part of it somehow. I don't know how I did it. And it's like, crap, I gotta get an iPhone now. Oh no. But no, I got an iPhone. I think I had an iPhone 2. No, I had an iPhone 3 and then iPhone 4, so I got 2 iPhones, and then I was like, wait, that's when I started getting real techie about things. I was like, oh, I want to do stuff, and I hate iTunes, so I got like a Galaxy S something, I don't know, and then I've just stuck with Samsung ever since, Samsung Galaxy phone. So I think the one I have now is like my 3rd Samsung Galaxy phone, and it's the S7, I think, is the one I have right now. It's the one with the curve, and the first one that like had the curved screen or whatever, which doesn't do much for it, but hey, it's a thing. It's an aesthetic.
You have a 7.
Yes. The Edge or whatever. So excuse me. But anyway, so let's go through a like computer perspective. Not necessarily. Well, we won't get into preferences yet, but just same thing with the phone, like what we've used, if there's been anything else or whatever. So Amos, I'll have you start again.
As far as computers go, like I grew up on Windows XP, then I went to 7, and then and oddly enough, in my personal life, it's always been Windows. But when it comes to work, it's always, or school and work, it was always like iMacs and stuff like that. Because whenever I was in high school, I was in graphic design, and we had a Mac lab, and I remember going there thinking, okay, so where are my files? how do I right click?
Yeah, you have to like hit control and then click. It's like, why can I not just right click?
Yeah, like the thing was, we had those mouse, like you know how Apple has this mouse where it's just like
it's just one button,
like a weird like pill, and it has like a ball in the middle for a scroll.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. But yeah, like I didn't really know how to use those, but I grew to figure them out, essentially. And once I got used to it, it wasn't exactly terrible. Like I mean, I'm making it sound like I hate this. Like Apple isn't as bad as I used to think it is, but I definitely prefer a Windows system, because Windows is a lot more customizable and a lot more easier for me to operate. Whereas like, Apple, I will say, it does have better programs that come with it. Like, the thing about Windows is that one of the biggest things is Windows Paint, and everyone's like, I love Windows Paint. I can draw stick figures and stuff. Whereas like Apple comes with like GarageBand and like a video editor, and they're actually pretty decent for what they
I never
are.
really thought about that. We're totally getting sidetracked. We'll come back to this, but I never thought of them as Apple having good starting programs, because I have the ability to purchase all these awesome programs, so I'm just always like, which one runs it better? But I've never thought of it as, well, Apple at least lets you have iMovie and GarageBand whenever you first buy the thing, which I guess that counts for the $2,000 price for 4 gigs of RAM.
I was
but whatever.
to say, like, that's one of the things that come with the jacked up price. And
right.
That's another thing is that Apple is it's the thing is like it's more universally used in business, which of course we all know this. But it's and I can see why, because like if there's just like one system that everybody uses, then it's a lot easier. But
yeah.
And I try to justify, it's like, come on, let's just use Windows. But I really like it. There are so many programs that work on Apple so well that Windows, I hate to admit, that just doesn't really do it nearly. Because with Windows, it has like it loads stuff differently. Like Apple has more dedicated. I want to say, I totally have no idea what I'm talking about. Well, I do, but I have no idea.
Dedicated WAM.
Dedicated way. Well, yeah, like the way it loads stuff is a lot more focused, I guess you could say. Like, with Windows, if you want a program to have the utmost focus, you have to tell the computer, hey, I want this to be, I want this to be the main thing that's running all assets towards this. Whereas Apple kind of already has a processor that does that. It's like, okay, this is what you opened, you want this to run, and it's going to run.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. I want to say streamlined. I really have no idea what I'm saying.
No,
right now.
that's a good word.
It's a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well, it's actually kind of funny, Amos. You're actually taking a different stance on this than I thought you would. But then again, what you use GIMP? I think that's what you use to draw.
Yeah, because it's free and I'm poor.
Yeah, I can't use GIMP. I've tried, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But like Photoshop, I bought it and I know how to use it. So it's just it's just things like that, We talked about this on our console thing. It always comes down to preference, but
definitely.
We're definitely going to get into a heated debate when it comes to preference, probably in a few minutes. But no, it's fine. Kyle, what you used, so on and so forth.
I mean, I've used a good majority of both of them. I've grown up on like PC. My parents never like, hey, let's go out and spend $2,000 on a Mac.
Yeah, right.
Well, mine neither. If we scratch the disc to crap, we didn't get another one.
Right? But no, it's the same thing where like I would use it at home all the time, and then if I ever like I had Macs in high school and middle school and college that I used, and even in my workplace, I'm like completely surrounded by Macs too. So I know how to work both. I have an idea. I'm more Mac because I mean PC. I have a PC. It's what I use in my daily life. But I know both of them fairly well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. On my end, it's about the same. It was actually kind of funny because I did start out with a PC. I think me and you have talked about the same as where we had those like old PC Bible games or whatever that we'd always play. I had a lot of those. I had a lot of old PC games like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh!
Toy Story 2. I had that.
But you said PC Bible games. I didn't mean to cut you off, but did you ever play the Doom knockoff Noah's Ark on the N64?
Oh, no, I didn't.
It's pretty funny.
I'll have to look into
how the
that.
N64 was like, it couldn't have like violence or whatever, and like they were really sheepish about like religious stuff. So someone just made Doom, but it was like with slingshots and Noah's Ark animals. It's pretty great.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, but I had a lot of that where I play games. Oh, that Game of Life game that we played. I think that's on the channel actually. If anybody's on YouTube listening to this podcast, we did a Game of Life playthrough, but that was a long time ago. I think that was before you got on, Amos. So I
think probably I don't remember. I was Brian Dixon.
We did play it like later. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that game's awesome. Anyway, yeah, it was like same. Like I had Windows XP, and then I was like, oh, it's great. And then like whenever I went in this thing called school, or I went to this thing called school. I went to this thing in school called East, which is basically how I got my start in like video editing and stuff. And I always edited on iMovie. I had a Mac and it was awesome. And then one Christmas I asked for a MacBook, and surprisingly, I got one, but it was like an older MacBook. But it was awesome, and I used that. I made a short movie called Fat Man, which I showed both of you guys that, and that
time was classic. I do say so myself.
I made that on my MacBook, and I was so proud of it. And in East, I always used Apple until I got a laptop, a PC laptop, and then I realized, oh wait, I can do more things on this. Like, I have more capability. I can right click. I have more capabilities with this. And then it kind of went from there, and I had that laptop. It broke, so I got another laptop. And it didn't break in the sense of like virus. It broke in the sense of, oops, I dropped it. That kind of break.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of bad. I'm not going to get into that.
It was a rather shocking experience.
Yeah. So I got a PC for college, or a laptop, and I still have it to this day. But it was due an upgrade, so I got this overhauled gaming computer to do pretty much everything for me. Like this thing is awesome, except gaming. Well, I use it for gaming too, but basically, like I can't even remember all the specs. It was like 16 gigs of RAM and has an NVIDIA gaming card in it, and it has like 2 terabytes of space. Like it has all this just amazing stuff, and it glows blue and red. But yeah, so that's basically my stance. Well, not my stance, but like what I've used. We're gonna get to my stance soon enough.
Oh baby.
I also had to use strictly Apple products for my old job with the pageants. But yet again, we'll get to that soon. So Amos, we kind of heard your. Oh wait. Okay, so let's go back to the phones actually.
Wait, did Kyle get his fill on
yeah, he did.
Yeah, we're fine. Let's go ahead and move on to phones. I feel like that's a good place to start off.
Yeah,
with.
So let's.
All right, I'm cool.
I guess we could kind of talk about. Because I'm gonna blow up about this. Like, if anybody knows, like, if anybody's ever listened to me talk, like, I was doing Ocarina of Time on the channel, and there are 2 episodes of me just ranting, and that's a lot of what this is gonna be. I'm afraid, but
welcome to the rant episode.
Pretty much, but like
turn-based ranting.
TBR. Welcome to your show, TBR.
Yeah, TBR. So I'm not gonna start, obviously, but so Amos, have you ever used an iPhone?
My sister had the closest. I will say the closest I've come to an iPhone was probably an iPod, and I don't even think that's in the same category.
No, they're the same thing, except one makes phone calls. Like they're literally the same thing.
Well, I guess yes.
like one is bigger and makes phone calls, but they do the same thing. They act the same thing. If you get if you got an old iPod Touch, like I had an iPod Touch as well. Like that was my. I guess I should have mentioned that, but it's technically not a phone, so I didn't think about it.
It's really not.
No, you could make it into a phone if you got like apps like the Facebook Messenger or whatever. But anyway, if you got an iPod Touch and then you got like the newest iPhone or whatever, they're gonna have differences. Like, you know, one runs better and one, you know, has all these features.
There's obvious differences.
Yeah, there's obvious differences, but like the generic like way that it works and runs and looks is pretty much exactly the same. Like if you want music, you have to use only iTunes. If you want to move your contacts over from one phone to the other, you have to use iTunes, or like everything is like strictly Apple and you have to do it this way or the other. Whereas with like, well, I mean, you know, the operating system is usually going to be the same with, you know, tweaks here and there. You know, it's the same thing with.
There's a lot of differences between the newest or like iOS update. You know, there's a lot of differences.
There's a lot of differences in like added things or whatever. But I'm just talking about the generic look. And I mean, you could say the same thing about Android as well. Like, you know, they generally have this theme and they kind of stick to it. They'll just add like, now you can
minor tweaks.
Yeah, it's minor tweaks.
They make it so that if you have like an iPhone 4 and then you got an iPhone 8, you'd still be able to navigate it to
right. Yes,
to a degree.
Thank you. That's the best way.
So they don't alienate their old users who are still using the iPhone 4s and who finally decide to upgrade.
That's a great way of putting that.
It's the same thing with Androids.
Unless we're talking about the newer, iPhone 10
X. we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit.
I can't wait.
So Kyle, your experience. What? So I asked. Now I know your experience. I asked Amos because I don't think he ever had an iPhone. But when it boils down to preference, Amos, I don't think you really could formulate an
Do
opinion.
you have a preference?
Yeah, do you have a preference?
Definitely, I've had enough of both of them. I'm just so sick of each personality. I definitely are more of an Android kind of guy. I just grew up on it, and I just have more, exposure to it.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I guess we'll just kind of like state where we are, and then we'll like explain why. So Kyle, when it comes to phones, where do you kind of sit?
That's a very difficult question.
Yeah, I know, because I know what kind of difficult thing you're in right now, because you're like really, like, you love your Samsung phones, but you kind of want the iPhone X because it's the closest thing to an actual smartphone.
There's a lot of, like, in all honesty, if I was like a millionaire, I would have two phones. I would have an iPhone for my work phone, and I would have a Galaxy Note 8 for my personal and everyday use phone.
Ditto that.
Both of them have like their own things that I like about them and things that I hate about them, and so I couldn't say that. For instance, that one of them is horrible, I would never want to ever touch again.
Yeah.
They both have their merits, in my opinion, and they both are fairly good phones. But of course, there's always my personal preference goes down to Samsung Galaxy phones if I could have a pick.
Okay. But so it's kind of funny because like. Well, no, actually, no. I was gonna say like we're all kind of like torn between, but no. Amos said Android because that's pretty much all he had. In my opinion, Apple can burn in hell. So I hate
someone playing devil's advocate,
right?
I hate Apple so much. I hate everything about Apple iPhones, and a lot of that pent up rage comes from having to help
Insecurity.
having to help my family with them because they're so hard. It's like, I want a ringtone. You would think that the simple act of getting a ringtone would be easy, but no, you have to get these like third-party apps to trick your iPhone into getting a ringtone. Like, it's stupid. It's so dumb.
Jailbreaking is the best thing that ever happened to Apple.
That's if you don't want to go through the iTunes store and buy them.
Yeah,
that's basically what it is. It's like if you want to have something that's customized or anything, you have to go the roundabout way.
Yeah,
but there's easy ways to do stuff.
Right. Well, yes, of course.
It costs money.
Oh my gosh. So like it's okay, I'm not gonna get into it yet because I just kind of obviously Android like that. I'll stop there and I'll
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, never would have guessed. Now let's now this one I'm actually kind of interested in. Computers. Amos, where do you kind of stick your claim when it comes to computers?
Oh yeah, definitely Windows. Always for
really?
me. Like I grew up on Windows XP, so like I'm really familiar with the way it laid out. And I didn't really get into computers until I want to say like junior high, when I figured out right-clicking can copy things and paste them and can make things neat, like putting ringtones into your phone and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So like I've just always enjoyed, or I've always just been more akin to Microsoft's programming, just because it's way easier in my opinion. Because like when it comes to Apple, I understand that they kind of make it easier for someone who's not very tech savvy,
who doesn't know how to use a computer.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's yes and no, because oddly enough, I find Windows easier to use, but Apple is more streamlined for people who just want a computer but don't want to like do anything crazy, like redo the specs or do any crazy like internal copying or anything like that.
It's kind of like how if you give like for instance, I gave my grandparents an iPhone because I knew that they would be able to handle that, but if I gave them a Samsung phone, they would not know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of that sense where we're so akin to Android because that it's easy for us, but to someone who's like from the outside who wants to try something new, that's complicated for them.
Exactly. Like that's another reason why I think Apple is so easily streamlined and more, average people. I mean, I'm not saying we're like some kind of super species of nerd, but like I'm definitely saying like the masses tend to like Apple more just because they would say it's easier to use, which in my opinion, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Use one of these things. I prefer rocket science to this Mozart crap.
Well, and Mozart is a very good way to like. It just kind of sucks because like everything Apple, literally everything Apple. They make custom stuff that only works with their things, and you can't.
The Apple Pen and the
Apple Pen, the Apple the USB-C charger. There is already a USB-C charger. Apple, use that. Don't make your own thing so it's more complicated for us to find your stuff. Custom, you can't listen. We'll get into the headphone jack thing later. Anyway, go ahead, Kyle.
So shockingly enough, I actually prefer Macs over PCs.
Really? That does shock
and
me.
That just boils down to the fact that I have spent so much money in PCs just for them to break down within months.
Really?
Yeah, like. I bought one for college, and that just completely, like, the thing I have with the Windows Phone or Windows PCs and all that stuff is they always seem to slow down, like to the point they slow down and then they just completely stop working. And my computer now, I have a Toshiba that I spent like $800-900 on, and it was really good when I got it and all that stuff. But like, I think I've had it for less than a year or maybe a year, and it's already completely like. Partially, not really like falling apart in the sense of it's falling apart, but it just stops working in the sense of like it's just stupid. Like I can't listen to anything on it because of the headphone. Like everything comes out distorted. It takes forever to load. I get made fun of all the time for it at work because I have a PC and not a Mac, and and I don't know. It's just like. It's one of those points where, like, at this point, I'd just rather have a Mac because in my line of work, everybody uses Mac. It's all everybody ever uses, and it's the only way to really do the job that I do. So eventually, we'll buy a Mac.
Well, it also kind of breaks down to see, because it's kind of like how Samsung is. Apple makes Apple, and that's it. Apple's done. But when it comes to Android operating system, there are several phones that do that. Same thing with PCs. See, you said you have a Toshiba. I would never buy a Toshiba, ever. I would never buy a Toshiba, just because I know how their computers are.
Yeah, I would. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say that I've had a Lenovo PC for like 5 years, and that thing still runs perfectly.
I've never even heard of that.
Lenovo?
Yeah, the last one I had was like an HP or something else.
Hewlett Packards are they're kind of a bit on the sluggish side. Like honestly, like my Lenovo, I bought it brand new. I want to say in 2000. It's either 10 or 11. I've had it for just years, and it still runs perfectly fine. It's in Windows 7 also, so it's considered outdated, but it still runs perfectly fine.
I always stuck with Dell. Was always the ones that I stuck with because I knew that if anything was wrong with my computer, it was my fault. Something I was watching anime on dubbed anime or something, and somebody put a virus on it or whatever, and but it got to that point. I started getting smarter about it, and like you were saying, Kyle, it would slow down, and if it was slowing down, I was like, okay, something's wrong, and I'd figure it out and I'd fix it, and then it'd work again. That's the thing about Windows. If it slows down, you can fix it. If an Apple slows down, buy a new one. Oh,
that's right. That's another thing. The Genius Bar with Apple is I've heard nightmare stories about the Genius Bar. Like it's just that's another thing that's kind of sucks about Apple is that if you want it fixed, if it by any chance does have a problem with it, if you want it fixed, you're better off getting a new one because getting it fixed is you're
stupid expensive.
The gas hit E, so I threw it out and bought a new one.
I mean, in all honesty, though, in reality, with my smartphone that I have, and my gaming systems at home, and every other bit of technology that I have, the only time I've ever used my computer is for work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll use it to draw on with my art tablet. That's genuinely it. So if I'm not working or if I'm not specifically doing that one thing, it sits in a corner and I don't touch it. So, I mean, in all honesty, because it's so work-oriented, my laptop usage is so work-oriented, I'd just rather have a Mac for work purposes.
That's understandable. Well, obviously I'm Windows, but I kind of wanted to just say, like, a lot of the reason I pick Windows is because I can do whatever I want except use Apple products. So, like, I want iMovie. Oh, well, I can't do that. So, whatever. I'll get Premiere instead because it's way better, or you can get whatever you want. With Apple, you're like held down by Apple or anybody who decides that they want to put a Mac port, which is usually not very often. It's just like games, you know, I want to play a game. Well, too bad you have an Apple, you can't play it. Oh, okay, cool. I'll get Linux, which I've never even seen a Linux computer, so I don't even know.
Are they even real?
Yeah, they're real. I don't know anything about them though.
It does exist.
But
it does exist. They do exist.
A lot of this like pent up rage for Apple is
somebody put a iPhone up his butt and he never got it out. And he's just very upset about it.
It's still there.
It's the community. It's the community, and all they're just, oh, Apple's the best, and anything that Apple makes is good. I don't care. It's just
to be fair, when you have anybody who's passionate about something,
but it's everybody. It's everybody who owns Apple. It's like, oh, did you see the new iPhone? It's like, it's the same phone. Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, as much as I would hate to say that's not true, it kind of is, because my sister, I mean, we grew up on the same thing, like XP and 7 and Windows, and when she got an iPhone, she praised it to the day it died, essentially. Yeah. So, like, she's been kind of turned to Apple, and she just kind of shrugs at anything, you know, Microsoft or Android.
I'm seeing all these images, and it's really upsetting me, where people are like, they'll make the meme where, like, iPhone users are like, look at the new phone, and it says, Android users will say, oh, we've had that for 6 years, which we have. What was it, Kyle, that you said is on this new iPhone that we've had forever? And
yeah, I was at work, and the iPhone did their press conference when they revealed the iPhone X and the iPhone 8, and I asked my coworkers about it, you know, to see what they thought about it. And they looked at the iPhone 8, for instance, and they were like, "Oh, this is so beautiful." I'm like, "It's the exact same thing as the 7." You know, like, which wasn't even the big point. The point was like, they were like going over the website and like all of the features that it listed, and they were like, "Oh my god, it has wireless charging."
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then like the thing that they had like 6 years ago, you know, with every other phone, pretty much. Or you know, things like that, and they were like, "Just stop it! You're ruining this for us."
Well,
it was straight up what they said: "Stop it! You're ruining this for us." And I was like, "They had that, you know, a few years ago. They had this like a year ago. They had this, you know, when the iPhone X came up, they were like face recognition, which I know it's not technically face recognition. You know, the iris scanning on the Note 7 and the Samsung Galaxy S8 and Note 8." But it's basically the same thing, and they were like, "This is so crazy how they can do this nowadays." And I'm like, "They had this years ago."
Yeah.
But I will say the one thing that Apple did invent that I have yet to have seen on any kind of Android device is the animated emojis, which are going to change the world.
That was actually kind of cool, but it doesn't.
It's not really an innovation.
Yeah, it's like, good job, you made a emoji move.
You make GIFs.
You also made a movie. Good job. Anyway.
Sony, to be fair.
The point I was getting at was those memes where it's just like, oh, we had that 6 years ago, and then like it shows a picture of it's like, oh, but this is what Android's cameras are, and it's like really pixelated. I just kind of want to state this real quick. Most people think that because whenever you send a picture to an Android user, it's pixelated, or vice versa. Here's the reason why. iPhone users, if you text another iPhone user, it's gonna look good. Android users, if you text another Android user, it's gonna look good. But if you do it the other way around, it's gonna look like crap. And then people think that it's our camera, when our camera takes
our cameras are
awesome
fine.
Pictures, like they're so good, and people are just like, "Oh, these are pixelated and terrible." Oh,
but the best kind of memes are pixelated.
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. But so like, okay, I don't know where to go from this.
I was gonna say about the innovation thing. Like, wasn't it a while back that Android did a thing where you could like share data just by touching the backs of the phones?
You can still do that. They just don't talk about it anymore.
I'm waiting for whenever Apple finally gets around to there, and people are like, "Shut up, Android."
Yeah,
who cares that you did it 8 years ago?
We did it. We did it a while ago. A lot of see. Kyle, you were talking about how people are like, "Oh, you have a PC, you're terrible." I lived in that for a year, and it was kind of it was terrible. Like, I loved my old job, I loved the people there, but those PC shaming people, it was just really annoying. Like, it was like every day it's like, well, if you had an iPhone, you wouldn't be having this problem.
Oh, poor peasant with your PC.
Which
Go ahead.
no, I have nothing to say.
Okay.
I do feel like we need to give Apple a little bit of credit here. I feel like we're just like slamming.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. It's so great how you can only do music through iTunes and that's it. You can't download anything with it. If you want to move photos to your computer, you have to do it through iTunes. Unless they they changed that actually recently. So
to be honest, though, honestly, even if I did have an Android phone, I wouldn't have any music on it.
Oh, really?
There's Spotify. There's Pandora.
Well, okay, well that's what I meant.
If I'm gonna like go to the gym and listen to music, for instances, that's what I'm gonna pull up. I'm not gonna pull up my like Google Play Music. I'm not gonna, because that takes storage and all that other stuff that I don't need. So honestly, that really doesn't matter. And
well, I just want to say,
in my opinion.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, like, Samsungs are like mini computer, or Androids are like mini computers, where Apple iPhones you can't do that. Like, okay. I needed a file from there was one time I needed a file from my brother so that I could make something for him, but I had no internet. I was on the road, but I had my computer where I could work. But obviously there's no Wi-Fi, so I just downloaded it on my phone and then plugged it into my computer and moved it over to my computer. Voila. There's no way you could have done that with an Apple. You can't. That just isn't a thing that exists. Unless it's like some third-party app or something I don't know about. But Apple just... It's meant to be simplistic. There is no customization.
It's meant to work with Macs as well. Like, exactly. It works extremely well with Macs, and they don't really interplay well with PCs.
Right.
And just the same way that Androids don't really work too terribly well with Macs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
they don't cross-play very well.
They're it's like they're very intentionally designed to not be compatible with one another, just for like competition's sake.
Yeah.
It's like, we have this advantage and they have that disadvantage, and vice versa.
It's just annoying.
So like, I don't think there'll ever be a time where like Android chatting with Apple will ever go smoothly.
No.
Just for competition's sake.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I wasn't going to say anything.
I was just going to say that, we have been talking like a lot of crap about Apple, but I would at least like to state that there are some good things about the Apple, like my iPhone, for instance. And I've mentioned it a bunch of times. I would, I even said that I would prefer the Note 8, but there are a lot of things I do like about it. For instance, I've had my iPhone 8 for a year now, and it is just as fast, if not faster, than when I first bought it and brought it out of the store. Like, I haven't experienced any slowdown. I haven't experienced any, like, crashes or anything like that, which I've experienced a million times, even with, like, Galaxy phones. Like, after a year or two, they get sluggish, and I've had issues and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of agree with you in that. They're kind of designed to take a beating, but... they're also designed to stop working after a select time so that you'll buy the new iPhone or whatever.
That is one thing that kind of kills me, and it's something that it's actually one of the things that, okay, just to kind of go off track, but keep a point here. GameCube is technically one of my more favorite consoles ever, but it was designed to kill itself, which is what I really hate about it, because it's such a good system. Where I see that pattern a lot with Apple too, because like once their iOS goes out of style, like it's like, okay, well, if you want to keep it with the times, you got to upgrade physically, not just digitally
die,
anymore.
Spider-Man. Pretty much.
Of course.
But like, yeah, I don't know. It just really upsets me that I can't do anything with an iPhone. Like, I'm forced to do what they want me to do, and like the headphone jack that irked me in everywhere. That made me hate Apple just that much more. It's like, oh, but you have Bluetooth. It's like, not all of us have Bluetooth, Apple. Sorry, I can't spend $2,000 on your phone and just, oh, but we'll give you a thing that lets you put in a headphone jack. Yeah, but I can't charge my phone. Oh, but we have a long-lasting battery. But what if I want to do both? Oh, get over it. It's just... Like, dear Lord, put it. I don't care if there are two speakers. I don't need two. It's a phone. I don't need two speakers.
I would just like to state this is Caleb's impersonation of anybody who's British. They're always very snobby.
Yeah, anyone British. More like anybody who uses it.
Boy!
Yeah. Which, I have to state this. Like, if you use an iPhone or if you love Apple, good.
Caleb hates you.
No, I don't hate you. That's the thing. I don't care. Just don't come up to me and tell me that your phone is amazing and that it's better than my phone. I don't care. What? Just use your iPhone and be happy.
My son's in the chess club. What does your kid do? Play baseball?
My son has straight A's.
With the peasants.
my son's in the computer club and has programmed. He's programmed a pod to go to the moon. What has your son done?
He's on the cricket. He's on the cricket team. Oh, your kid's in the anime club. What a bag!
Oh my gosh! But yeah, I don't hate you. I don't dislike anybody who has a different opinion than me, because that's not fair. That's just no. Stop.
Unless it's Zelgan, you can go.
Yeah, unless it's Zelgan. Yeah, that no, get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. But
then I guess I better get off this channel then.
But yeah. So gosh, I want to let you guys kind of talk because I'm just kind of fuming right now. So I'm just gonna iPhone X go.
It's neat.
It's neat.
I will give it this. Like the thing is that I kind of see like a correlation between like Nintendo and Apple. Like Apple, like the reason why so many people hate the iPhone X is because it's so different. And at a certain point, yes, there are some things that I do have gripes with, but they truly believe that they're innovating because, like, you know, they're like, okay, this is the future. Like, no buttons, no like.
Oh yeah, that's right. It has no buttons. I forgot about that. Doesn't it also have like a header or something that covers up part of the screen or something? Like it has a thing that goes over. It has like a thing, like a header at the top of it where like the camera is. Oh
yeah, it's got a cutout where the camera is.
And it like if you open up Safari, it like covers up the whole entire like top fourth of Safari, and you can't even see the URL.
Yeah,
something like that. Anyway,
but like I was saying, like the thing is, like I have to give them props for trying because they truly believe that they are innovating. Just like when Nintendo did the Wii, they were like, "This is motion control. This is gaming of the future," and the people were like, "This is stupid, Nintendo." They were wowed by it.
It's like the number 2 top selling console ever.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it wasn't, you know, $1 bazillion like Apple's iPhone X. But like that, my point is that like they seem to be like trying to innovate. Like they're taking a risk here with the X. To be fair,
they took a risk with the headphone jack too.
Oh yeah, okay. Just because they changed it doesn't make it good, but it's definitely a sign that they want to be the ones to start innovating, and that's always good. That's always good when people are trying new ideas, because if we stagnate for too long, nothing's going to change. We'll all just be the same orange paste in year 2020, and no one will be interesting, and we'll all listen to the same song. but that's the thing about Apple. That's one thing I can appreciate about Apple is that they kind of do realize that they've been doing the same phone for years now. I mean, I don't care if you're an Apple fan or not, that's exactly what they've been doing, just tiny innovations here and there.
Yeah.
But with the X, it's kind of showing that, hey, we're willing to make a step forward. We're willing to make changes to get you interested again, which I have to condemn. I have to applaud them for that. At least it's a shot. Like, even though I still prefer Android because it's a safe bet, I just prefer it. I mean, like I said, I still think Apple they're doing a pretty good service trying. That's what I should say.
I just I would love to see. I would be okay if I saw a bunch of people using the iPhone X. You know, it's fine, but it's $1,000.
Okay, yeah, that's ridiculous. That you have to at least have like a contract or something
just to
put it off a few digits of that.
I saw this picture and it's just like the entire menu at Cracker Barrel is $889, and the iPhone X is $1,000. Like, that's ridiculous.
To be fair, though, I will say this: it is $1,000. Which everybody criticizes, and a phone that doesn't get this much criticism, but is only $60 less, is the Note 8.
Seriously?
It's only $60.
Oh yeah, the Note 8 is still.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's expensive. It's stupidly expensive, but it doesn't get any crap because it's not that at the exact $999.
Right. Well,
in all honesty, if you're spending that much money, $60 really isn't that much. Right. Especially since most people don't buy their phones outright; they buy it on a plan, so that adds maybe $1 or $2 a month. Something over the lifespan of you buying it. So it's usually really not.
When you buy it on a plan, it's usually not that amount. It's usually like a third of that. Because like for instance, I'm on AT&T. AT&T will cover the cost if I'm on a plan with them, which I am. But the thing is I can only get a new phone every 2 years or whatever. Wasn't didn't you say, Kyle, that like they're getting their resources from Samsung or something like that?
Yeah, because actually Samsung owns the patent for OLED technology.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that.
And so when and honestly, Amos, I'm gonna I know you said that you feel like they're innovative here, and I have the absolute opposite opinion of Apple at this moment in time, because I don't think it's not innovation. It's what they're doing. It's catch up.
Well,
nothing what they're doing is necessarily innovative. And and this boils down to my big issue with Apple. Is I like Apple. I just feel like they're in a state where they're only concerned about the money here. It's all they're concerned about. Which technically, in all honesty, every company in the world is only concerned about the money. But Apple just seems to be rolling in it because. Well,
I mean, that's kind of evident when they have devices that only work and only will work with their devices.
Right.
I mean, that's not really a secret. I mean, they might as well be saying, "Give us money for essentially something that can be done third party."
Yeah. Well, I mean, in all honesty, though, if you are such a not that they're a small company.
No,
but I say small in the fact of they're really the only company that does it. For instance, whereas for Android or Windows, you have Toshiba and
you have all
HP,
these people,
and you have millions of you have hundreds of companies that kind of work on that same platform. Apple kind of has to stick to itself. So I understand that they have to make one of whatever it is for their for that works with them and only them.
Yeah,
because they don't get all the million third parties that do it. But the issue with Apple is that they've gotten to the point where they're all we need to do is change one or two small things every year and tell everybody about it, and they'll buy it. So why do we need to even? Why do they need to? Because it comes down to the point for the Note 8 for Note 7, for instance. When I had that, it had too much stuff going for it, and they tried to do too much with it. They had that massive issue where it blew up. And so Apple's kind of in the state where they're why do we need to? We don't need to risk it. We don't need to try anything crazy new that would draw in millions of customers or push customers back. We don't need that. All we need to do is add one or two small things, and we're guaranteed a few $1 billion this year. So, which is smart on their part. I can see that. I just hate it.
Money.
I just hate it from a consumer standpoint. They're very stagnant. And this iPhone X, which you said is very innovative, I feel it's not. And I feel like they're.
Well, I mean, I should probably say that the idea is innovative, but I mean, me personally, I don't truly believe that. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
You're just trying to make Apple seem good, but we all know deep inside that they're not.
Well, they're not people who are going to be listening to our Apple.
They're not that bad.
They're not that bad now.
I am not the biggest Apple advocate, but I feel like I have to at least say a few things on their behalf before this completely downgrades to a Apple-ish crap rant, which it's quickly becoming.
Right.
They have some redeeming qualities. For instance, their user interface is. I like it. I prefer it over Android and stuff like that.
Just recall this to why Android is better than Apple.
This is a highly opinionated video. If you can't tell,
well, this is as podcast as it gets. I mean, it wouldn't be a podcast if we weren't opinionated. I mean, it's not like we started this off by going, "You listen here, Android is best," and that's a fact.
Well, yeah, because the last thing you want to do is create an echo chamber, because then no conversations can be had.
Right. No, this is purely opinionated, and honestly, this has been something that's been strong on me pretty much ever since I started my last job.
When I ascended from the womb, I knew I was going to hate Apple.
You were mentioning earlier. Actually, I'm not going to bring this up because this is actually just sidetracking, has nothing to do with it. So never mind.
We've been sidetracking this entire conversation,
right? But it just upsets me. It's really all it does. I mean,
might as well get it out there if it's bothering you that bad.
It's just there's so many. So Macs or whatever. I'm gonna jump over to computers now. See, okay. I spent $2,000 on this powerhouse of a computer I have right now.
Yeah,
and this thing can do anything I want. Anything. It could save the world if it wanted to, but it's not going to because he's a jerk. Anyway,
America.
Yeah. Anyway, I spent $2,000 on this computer. Really, really nice computer. If you spent $2,000 on, say, a MacBook, for instance, it's not going to have the type of power that this PC has. If you buy just a Mac for $2,000, it's not going to have the power. If you have to drop a ton of money on a Mac, or like an actual, like, you know, the ones that are just, it's just a monitor, but it's a computer at the same time or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Those are so expensive, and they're just not as powerful as this piece of machine I have sitting in front of me right now. Like, it's just... It's just upsetting that you, people are like, oh, you're spending so less money on something that's not as good. And it's like, that's the complete opposite. I'm spending less money on something that can do way more stuff and last just as long as I take care of it. See, the one of the biggest things that people will always say about Apple is that it can't get a virus. Yes, it can. It can get it's a computer. It most certainly can get
malware, and it's a virus.
It most certainly can get. You see that little spinning beach ball that won't stop being there? Yeah, you got a virus, you dummy. It's like, but it doesn't say I have one. It's because Apple's not going to tell you have one, so you'll go buy another computer and wonder why it's going so slow. It just upsets me that people get all these, they think Apple is indestructible and they're just going to always pick Apple because of that, so they'll drop as much money as they possibly can. And believe me, I was in that mindset too when I got my MacBook, and I was like, oh, it can't get a virus, you know, so I'll get the MacBook. And I got the MacBook and it got a virus. You lied to me. So it's just,
what kind of sick prank is this?
But like using my MacBook for like creative people or whatever, it's like, I want GarageBand. I will tell you right now that GarageBand is a really awesome application. I love GarageBand. I've always loved GarageBand, and I still love GarageBand. As an editor, iMovie is a good starting application. Final Cut, I hate Final Cut. Anyway, but like Apple has things going for it. I just hate that it doesn't allow you to use normal things. You can only use, like, that's the biggest like shot in the foot, is like you can only use our stuff. Like, for instance, one thing that kind of upset me the first time I got a MacBook was they don't have HDMIs. They're not called HDMIs.
They don't.
They're called display ports. And back then, you couldn't just go to Best Buy and buy one. You had to go to an Apple store. Thank the Lord they've changed that now. You can go to Best Buy and buy one, but they're like $30. And that's just to like have display port to HDMI. Nobody has a display port. Nobody. You can't plug that into a TV or a monitor. Or not a monitor. You could do that in a monitor, but you couldn't do it to like maybe a newer monitor or one that's only Apple, which I don't, does Apple just sell monitors? Is that a thing?
No, it's always the iMacs that have. It's like the
iMacs. That's what they're called. Yeah. But yeah, they don't have HDMIs, which is just the most bizarre thing to me. Oh my gosh, their new MacBook. I forgot, Kyle.
Yes.
What? It only has like a charging port and one USB. No, it doesn't have any USB.
Right. They have that stupid like tray on the side for all your other stuff. I totally forgot about that.
It has 2 ports, and that's all you need.
And it doesn't have any USBs. I hate Apple so much. I'm sorry. I hate them.
You want more USBs? Buy the
almost as much as you hate Microsoft.
I mean, that was a meme. Like, it was just like, whenever the headphone jack was being removed, that was a meme going around where where it was like, hey, we got a new update for the MacBook. It's like, oh, cool. It's like this Apple guy fixing his MacBook. It's like, oh, cool. What is it? We removed your USB ports. And now that's an actual thing. Like, we're taking away the most universal thing. It has universal in the name, and they took it out. Like, why would you do that? I need to plug in my hard drive or my flash drive. No, you don't. You need an Apple hard drive where you
all you need to do is just pay for us to give you an adapter that goes USB-C to everything else.
Put it on the computer. Why, Apple, must you make everything so
it makes it waterproof.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like a joke where it was like
waterproof. It's just like, it's already like an $8,000 computer. I'm over exaggerating, but it's already like a really expensive computer. Buy our $300 extension so you can plug your $300 hard drive into it. Just like, oh, they just make me so mad. Like, they say they're making things easier for people, but they're just making them way harder than they need to be. Just like, we made it simpler by taking it away. Okay.
Like, wasn't there a joke going around? It's like Apple removed all its headphone jacks, but Android added 4 new ones just to spite Apple.
Now you have a port on every single inch of phone, even on screen.
All 3 of your friends could listen to the same song you're listening to.
I mean, like, it was like a joke whenever the Switch had a headphone jack. They're like, see, they know what they're doing.
This gaming tablet has a better idea of versatility
than the Apple. But no, like, I think the worst example, I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to say their name or anything, but I saw this one person who they needed to, they had those like square things where you put them in your headphone jack and you can swipe it and it for a credit card or whatever. Yeah. So I saw someone had the new iPhone. They needed to use that, but they couldn't because they were charging their phone. So they couldn't. The person who was buying something from them couldn't pay because they were charging their phone because they didn't have a headphone jack. So
ouch.
Just, it's so dumb. Just Apple, why do you do the being in? Anyway, I need to shut up. You guys say things now.
Words.
I'm being hateful, but like, oh my gosh, after remembering that MacBook thing, I'm just all fired up again. Like, I completely forgot about that.
This is one of the only subjects that you'll ever hear Caleb get this fired up about.
So
this
and Zelda.
This and the Ganon.
Zelganon.
Zelganon. Yeah, those are the 2 subjects he gets fired up about.
We need to do an entire podcast just bashing Zelganon.
I will gladly do that.
I hate it when it shows up in my Tumblr feed. It says, "What are you doing here?" It has a link for Legend of Zelda. No, this is the devil. The devil needs to go away. So
I really hate it when that kind of stuff shows up in my recommended for you. I'm like, what have I done?
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's just like, what are you doing here? Go away. I don't know. Leave me.
Anyways, back to bashing Apple.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're actually coming to a close, so I guess we'll do some final thoughts here.
Hey, you guys want to talk about the failed Apple video game system?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. They did try to do a video game system.
They could have been really good. They had a really good system seller lined up before they ended up selling it because they didn't think it was going to do any good.
Yeah, they had a controller.
Took Halo and loved this chainsaw and Gears of War.
Yeah, and their controller had no buttons. They removed all the buttons, so they were gone.
And headphone jacks.
And headphone jacks. Or no headphone jacks. You just stared at it and watched it while somebody else played off of a Windows.
It ran off of face recognition. you had to like make face. It's kind of like the Kinect, only
smile to go forward.
Yell at your teammates for not covering turf.
So dumb. But yeah, so I don't like Apple. I think that's the only final thoughts that I have to say is I just don't like Apple. You use Apple, good for you. That's great. But I don't hate you. You're fine. You're a normal person. Most people use Apple. I know a lot of Android users, like, cuz my entire family uses Apple. My entire family uses Apple, but every single one of my friends use Android. I don't know if that has anything to say. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I don't know if there's a connection, but that's just kind of how my life is. All of my family uses Apple. All of my grandparents, my brother, everybody, they all use Apple, and all of my friends use Android. Not a single one of them use Apple. So.
But I have Apple.
Except you. I bet you're forced to use Apple.
So. And I'm the black sheep. Caleb secretly hates me.
No. So, Amos, do you have any final thoughts on this whole debate?
I would say that as much crap as we've been giving Apple, I still think they have a chance to do something. like I said, like
not
I don't know,
good, just
not
something.
Good. Let's just hope they do something.
Well, I mean, like the thing is that, like, I will say, even though they're like in a really big financial position, like Disney and Nintendo, they don't seem to be they don't really seem to be too crazy about changing formula. And even though I was praising it for trying something new, it's not new enough for it to matter.
Turns out it's not new. So
I don't know. I think once they get under new management, like I do believe that once somebody realizes, hey, we can actually start innovating in a much better way instead of taking things away to make it better. I still am a little hopeful of Apple. I mean, I'm a little hopeful for Apple. I mean, even though I personally may never actually use one, I still think that they have a chance to be something more than what they've been doing. But and at the end of the day, I'm still going to be using Android.
Just to kind of add to something you said, like, do you think they went downhill whenever Steve Jobs died?
I don't know. Like Steve Jobs,
Yes.
Steve Jobs was the one.
Thanks, Kyle.
To be fair, Steve Jobs was the one who wanted to do the iPen. Like he had that idea packed down before he kicked the bucket.
But would it have been better?
For Apple, yeah. For the consumer, I don't think so. It's probably exactly the same. I mean, Steve Jobs, like he was, he was a great entrepreneur. Like he really made something of himself. But in all honesty, I don't think him being alive would have much any impact or difference on what Apple's doing today.
Yeah, well, you may be right.
I mean, I guess, he's still a businessman.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know, to be honest. I mean, kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen whenever Bill Gates kicks the bucket.
He doesn't care. He already sold Microsoft, and he's sitting pretty well right now.
Yeah, never mind.
He's like, I sold it off years ago. I don't have to do anything except sit here and watch TV all day.
Just cash in checks.
Final thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, and I'll be the odd one out again here. That, in all honesty, final thoughts. Apple is not a horrible company. I don't think they're horrible. I think they have a lot of good points. I just feel like here recently they've become too complacent with themselves and have decided to do nothing except shoot out the exact same phone and take away a lot of things that people want just to see if they can save more money, because that's what taking away a lot of those ports does. It saves them extra money, but it doesn't matter because they still charge you even more for it and people still buy them. So, I mean, in all honesty, if, for instance, a few years down the road they get their heads out of their butt and they decide that they actually want to be decent people and put all their things back in their computers and their phones and actually start to innovate, again, I would not be opposed to keeping Apple and doing all that, because that's the real reason that I'm pushed towards Android, is because while I like, for instance, the user interface and its ruggedness, I just dislike the fact that they have decided to stay stagnant.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I think that's fair.
I guess we'll just see what happens. I mean, Samsung will Android will continue to do its thing, Microsoft will continue to do its thing, and Apple will continue to be Apple.
iPhone 11 now it has no screen.
And I can't think of any better way to end it on that. So I hope everybody enjoyed this TBT, and we definitely hope to see you guys in whichever one we decide to do next. Maybe Amos will be the host of that one, perhaps.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
But if you guys have any suggestions or anything that you want us to do, please leave them in the comments. We'd like to hear them. And
sorry, I'm stretching.
Yeah, you're fine. Amos, where can these lovely people find you at?
Check me out on Tumblr. I'm there pretty often. I have a Twitter that I don't really use much. It's just a Splatoon Miiverse. But go ahead and check me out there.
They're both Amos the Art Man, except Twitter has like NS at the end of it or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find another Amos the Art Man, tell me who it is so I can take my name back, because I am the alpha.
And Kyle, you don't want people finding you, correct?
No, nobody can ever find me. Nobody must know who I am. I'm actually a drug lord, and I'm on the run.
Gotcha. And you can find me at MURPHGAM at Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram. You can message me on there, and I may or may not message you back. So, also, if you're listening to this on
iPhone, I'm not messaging back.
Yeah, basically, if you want to get in touch with Caleb, do not put I like iPhone, or if you really want to get his attention, put I hate iPhone, and he will immediately respond to you. Guaranteed.
I love iPhone. Yeah. My favorite shit.
You can, if you're listening,
and please, if you decide to help Caleb here, he's accepting iPhone 7 cases with Zelda Ganon on them.
Yes,
he needs lots of them.
Actually, I'll sacrifice them to to the Triforce. Anyway, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can listen to us on SoundCloud at Turn-Based Talk. If you're on SoundCloud and you're listening to us, you can find our gaming channel at MURPHGAM Gaming, where we post this, and we also do all sorts of random crazy stuff. Me and Amos are working on something special, and we hope that it comes out soon.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an outdoorsy kind of thing. I got a bottle rocket, and I put it somewhere on my person.
Let's
shot
not.
Out, and then hairs are burned, but
oh my
hey, it
gosh.
was funny.
But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and we hope to see you in the next one. See you guys.
Later.
Bye.